Turning around and heading back in the opposite direction to where we just were, you can find this gravel path flanked by palm trees. You've got a field of cows and these rocks added in.
United Tango Victor, Roger, runway 09, clear for takeoff, surface wind 150 degrees, 4 knots.
Runway 09, clear for takeoff, easy 93 Tango Victor.
Hello, Flight Sim fans, and welcome to the Practically Geek channel. In this episode of the best free add-ons for Microsoft Flight Simulator, I've headed to Brazil to check out Aeroclube de Carazinho by VisualRules. This can be found on flightsim.to, and I will leave a link for it in the description down below. Aeroclube de Carazinho is located in the southern region of Brazil, not too far from the city of Carazinho, which is located in the state of Rio Grande do Sul. This particular aero club has 3 private hangars. It also has access to a factory, which is accessible by this taxiway and apron in the bottom of shot as we fly above it. Now, I have been looking forward to showing you this one. It's been in my to-do folder for quite a while now. In fact, it's been in there since March 2021 when this scenery first released. So when I was making up my YouTube schedule last week, I thought, yes, let's go and check out Carazinho, because I really want to show you guys just how much VisualRules have upgraded this scenery. As always, let's check out the default scenery first before making our way into the Freeware add-on. And I must say the default scenery for Carazinho isn't too bad. I am getting references from Google Maps. This kind of remote apron on the right where my aircraft is situated doesn't seem to have any buildings or anything else around it. I don't know what date the satellite imagery was taken for this area, so it would be interesting to know if there's any additional buildings or anything around it in this moment of time. The apron on the left as we approach it is the kind of the main apron for the Aero Club. There's 1 large hangar and then 3 small ones. The default scenery, the autogen buildings aren't too bad, but there is 4 buildings here in real life, not 3, so it is missing 1. And on the very top right of the airport, making our way further down to the end of the runway, you can see there's a factory with its own apron and taxiway. I couldn't find any information of what that particular factory does, but it seems that it does use air travel for maybe cargo or maybe even getting the factory workers out here. And that is pretty much it for the layout of Carazinho and the default scenery. So let's head into the VisualRules freeware to see just how much they've improved this Aero Club. Welcome back to Aeroclube Carazinho here in Brazil. Let's go and have a look around at this lovely little airport and see just how much VisualRules have improved this scenery. So having a look at the Aero Club from above, you can see that VisualRules have done some really good upgrades. You can see that that remote kind of apron has been retextured along with the taxiway and the runway. It feels less remote now with some added foliage around it. We've got a lovely perimeter fence going right round the airport, and over to the left where you can see the main apron, you can see there's been a perimeter road or an entrance way with lots of lovely new trees, the windsock and bushes, and the road obviously has been added with a lovely texture to it. I do love that we now get the proper buildings, the true to life buildings that are located here at Carazinho. We will of course be heading down and getting a closer look at all these added details that VisualRules have put into this scenery. You can now see that the factory with its own apron and taxiway heading out onto the runway there has been added in. I love the texture work that you can already see, the dirt and weathering to the runway, which looks quite new. I must say the tarmac, the asphalt here looks pretty newly laid. And the building over to the left of the factory here Once again, the perimeter fence looks fantastic. A lot of ground clutter, trucks and concrete pipes and wood and just building materials. You can see a massive skip with broken bits of wood in there. And if you look over to the other side of the runway, you can actually see something that you probably didn't notice within the default scenery. And unless you look at Google Maps, you wouldn't know that it's here. There's this kind of water, kind of, I would say it's a pond maybe. There doesn't seem to be any rivers leading off it, and you can see a small little short takeoff and landing strip there as well, which VisualRules have added in. And this bit of water, the body of water, wasn't even in the default scenery. It was just land, it was just grass, but they've gone in and added the buildings around it, the little runway which has got a little static aircraft. Again, we'll go down there and take a look at that in just a moment. So, taking a closer look at the factory then, you can see lots of details like the entranceway with its own custom barrier, the porter cabin with the signage on there, the white and red barriers, sort of the temporary barriers running across the road. You can see the hedge separating the grass from the main area of the factory. The building itself has got some PBR texture on it, reflecting the environment around it. Now, I'm not sure if that's a default asset building that you can put into the editor. I know that the main apron has got all the replicas of the buildings that are here on site, but the perimeter fence looks really, really good, really well modeled. The texturing on the items is actually very good. You can see this lamppost here with the wood pole is quite detailed even at this close distance, and the texturing on the asphalt, the concrete of the groundway, is done to a really good standard in my opinion. Making our way over the apron here, you can see more of these temporary white and red barriers which look great. They're splitting the taxiway which we're entering now from the apron at the factory. The ground texturing, as I mentioned before, really well done. I love the white sort of blotches of dirt with the weathering. It doesn't look repeated, which is kind of sometimes a bad thing. You can see textures repeating on some buildings in some sceneries, but here you are getting quite a nice spread of different bits of weathering and dust. And the taxiway markings and the runway markings, which we'll see in a second, have been upgraded and done to a good standard as well. Just a little look at the ground clutter here on this building, which is next to the factory. You've got different things like boxes tied down to pallets, fuel tanks, we've got breeze blocks or cinder blocks, pallet trucks, and we've got like a scaffolding type structure, and it's all done to a high standard. Again, can't comment on whether this is the default assets at play here. I certainly wouldn't think so, with the other side of the Aeroclube being modeled to the real life version. I've just noticed that those boxes that are tied down have US Army on them, so I'm not too sure what's in there. And at the front of the same building, we've got trucks and cars. They certainly do look like the default assets within the simulator. We've got porter toilets, we've got metal structures, more fuel tanks, barrels, and this bin with broken up bits of pallets and wood, and it all looks very convincing. The wall around the sort of site here has got lots of dirt and weathering along the top, which also looks good. And I am actually really impressed with the texture quality of the taxiways and the runway. You can see more dirt, and the dirt's heading off to the taxiway that leads to the same factory we were at before. And I love, again, that you can see imperfections to the tarmac. You can see where the planes have been hitting the ground, the marks where the tires have hit the ground. Once again, lovely work by VisualRules to achieve this level of detail. Heading down towards the main apron here at Carazinho, I absolutely love the little entrance road, the texture, once again the white markings going along the sides of the road, the wing sock on its own little sort of pavement area here, and just all the added foliage, the trees, the bushes along the edges of the road. Once again, you can see street lamps lining the sides of the pavements, which all look really great. And you can get a closer look now of the hangars, the recreated hangars that stand here on the apron of Carazinho. Once again, I'm impressed with the level of ground clutter on offer here. I'm also impressed with the detail in the texture and work and the model of this hangar. The blue struts and brickwork look great even at this distance. We are quite close now going underneath this structure, the roof and structure, and I'll get some pictures of the real life hangar just so you can compare them. And yeah, I'm pleasantly surprised. There's quite a lot of nice texture work going on, the weathering of the actual walls, the floor, these white stone pillars that hold up the metal structures are all dirty, and the walls you can see are very dirty and look like they've stood there for quite a long time. Just behind the apronway and in between the two hangars, we have this lovely rendered tower. It looks like the beacon light and some weather instruments towards the top. You can see, as before, as well as the runway and the hangar and the buildings within this scenery, it's all nicely weathered, some lovely marks, chips on the paint. Unfortunately, as you can see above, the beacon light isn't level with the tower itself. Now, it is worth mentioning that this hasn't had an update yet, this scenery. It was released early last year, as I mentioned at the start of the video, so hopefully VisualRules do have plans on more scenery and to fix this little issue that they've got going on here. The section between the two hangars is really nicely done. We've got some picnic benches and stone benches and all these lovely trees, and this area just it really does look really nice actually between the two hangars at this lovely little aero club. And just in front of that lovely little area we pass through, looking out onto the apron here at Carazinho, is this concrete bench in honor of VisualRules donor Ju Madeiras, and that's a lovely thing to do, guys. I love what you've done here. Running along the side of the apron, we have hangar 3. We have the enclosed fenced off fuel tank station. We've got a baggage trolley and a small set of yellow stairs. I'd love to point out the once again the texture and level on the front of this hangar. As I mentioned before, nothing repeated. The texturing goes along the edges of the roof. It looks like rain has come down and stained the paintwork and the concrete, and it does really add some realism in. Just at the side of hangar 3, we have the Cessna 152 with a toolbox. Look like it's getting some kind of maintenance done. We've got a few more trucks scattered about here, pallets and bins like we saw before, and it just adds to the overall real life feeling of being at this particular aero club here in Brazil. The roof of hangar 3, you can see, we're talking about the textures again, the weathering and the dirt. You can see the blue paint is chipped off, and I'm sorry to repeat myself, but there's no kind of copy and paste here. It all looks done to a high standard. If you look to the right, the building just off to the right with the windows, the brickwork and the frame around, the white frame around the windows are all done to a very high. I think that's almost payware quality in my opinion. Turning around and heading back in the opposite direction to where we just were, you can find this gravel path flanked by palm trees. You've got a field of cows and these rocks added in. The fencing along the edges of the gravel path look really well done, and this is the part where you can see the added in water, the body of water, which wasn't present in the default scenery, along with a short takeoff and landing strip, which we'll take a closer look at now. And just look at that, doesn't that look excellent? Really good work by VisualRules to make this field look a bit more alive, and with the little hut with the food barrels and the water, I imagine that's where the cows go to eat and drink, the stones and the rocks, the hedges, and again those palm trees flanking the gravel footpath all the way along, or so would I say driveway actually, rather than footpath. It all looks really good, really great work. Just in front of the short takeoff and landing strip, we have this small bungalow type house with its wooden benches and cars around it, and the short takeoff and landing aircraft all coned in here. I love what VisualRules have done with this area. They've came away from the Aeroclub itself and upgraded the area, which should have a body of water in, and I've just made it so much better, and you will see a before and after of that coming up soon. And that's it. That's all you get. This short takeoff and landing strip on the body, almost on the edge of the water, with its two white runway markings. You can see where it ends and finishes. I love the benches for the spectators, and we've got two porta toilets just off on the gravel section there. I think I'm gonna have to challenge myself and do some short takeoff and landings for sure. And I think it's about that time again. Let's rewind those watches and clocks and head back in time with me to 1 a.m. in the morning to check out the night lighting here at Carazinho Aeroclub. And there we go, look at that. You can see the area around this small little building is lit up, and off in the background there you can actually see parts of the runway and the factory as well, which looks great from this viewpoint. And I must say, the runway edge lighting and the blue taxiway edge lighting looks really great. Let's get closer to the main apron and check out some of the night lighting there, and also the factory, and then we will move on to some before and after shots. And I must say, the night lighting that VisualRules have implemented into this scenery is really great, really high standard in my opinion, apart from being blinded by that beacon light, which is a shame because the rotating light on the top of that tower looks really excellent. The security lights on the edges of the hangars all light up the apron very well. You can actually see the oil slick and the dirt and the weathering even at night, which looks really fantastic. The warehouse type building with all its ground clutter looks good at night. The lights illuminating the side walls and the sort of yard of the factory there. Once again, the factory here with its own apron is nicely lit up with its taxiway edge lighting and its security lighting within the building itself. And overall, I must say the night lighting for Carazinho is really great. VisualRules have done a fantastic job on this one. With that being said, let's check out this Aeroclub in default scenery and the Freeware scenery at the same time, using my split screen before and after section. I hope you enjoy this. Aeroclube de Carazinho is available over on flightsim.to, absolutely free of charge. I will put a link in the description for it. If you do download any of the freeware airports that I feature on my channel, please consider leaving a small donation if the developer is taking any. If you have enjoyed this video, please give it a big thumbs up and please consider subscribing to the Practically Geek channel for more Microsoft Flight Simulator content just like this. Thank you so much for watching, and I will see you again very soon.
United Tango Victor, Roger, runway 09, clear for takeoff, surface wind 150 degrees, 4 knots.
Runway 09, clear for takeoff, easy 93 Tango Victor.